Thanks for joining us today. I'm Keegan Hamilton, the U.S. editor at Vice News. I'm here to talk about refugees in the United States. As you guys have probably heard by now, President Trump has signed 2 executive orders so far during his term that try to limit the number of refugees that the U.S. will accept. Both of these orders have been blocked by federal judges, but there's still a lot of confusion about what exactly these orders mean for refugees, and just in general about what it means to be a refugee and what they have to do to come to the U.S. To help explain what's going on, we're joined today by Taif Jani, an Iraqi refugee who works as the policy coordinator for the Youth Elected Officials Network in Washington. Thanks for talking with us today, Taif.
Thanks, Keegan, for the invite. Happy to join you.
So for starters, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you ended up in the United States?
Sure. So I'm originally from Baghdad, Iraq. I was born and raised in a small town in southern Baghdad. I come from a small religious minority group in Iraq. It's called the Mandaean community, or the religion is called Mandaism. And I grew up in Iraq up until I was 16 years old before I left. So I was in Iraq a little bit during Saddam's time and a little bit after the 2003 invasion. I arrived in the U.S. in 2008 as a student, and I've been here ever since.
So we're going to go straight into some of the audience questions we've been putting out there for folks on Twitter and Facebook, and we're still taking questions. If you have questions about, how refugees come to the United States, what it means to be a refugee, send us those questions, and we'll feed them to Taif, or I can try to answer them myself. But one of the questions we got, and this was one that we got a few variations of, is why didn't you stay and fight for your country or try to make your country better?
Well, first thing first, I was, again, 16 when I left, so I was pretty much a child. I did not know how to use a weapon or whatever. Second, and I think most importantly, the reasons that forced me to leave Iraq really left me no choice but to leave Iraq. I didn't leave Iraq because I wanted to. In 2006, in November 2006, my father was kidnapped in Iraq on his way back home from work. My family, a few days after that, was threatened to leave Iraq. And at the time, which is during the sectarian civil war in Iraq, folks really didn't have a choice to make. If someone came and threatened you to leave and ripped your family apart, you really don't have a choice whether you can stay or not. If you stay, you die. And at the time, I didn't want to die. So we made the call and we fled Iraq in the middle of the night with nothing, pretty much. So I wouldn't say that's a choice that I made. It was something that I was forced to do. And I sought to seek something better for my life and for my family. So I fled hoping to get a better opportunity, which fortunately I did when I came to the U.S.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of folks don't understand, that it is literally in most cases a life and death decision for folks who are, deciding whether or not they're going to flee their country and try to become a refugee. One of the things that's going on right now is President Trump says the U.S. needs more intense screening of refugees in order to prevent terrorist attacks. I guess a lot of people don't realize that most refugees already go through 18 to 24 months of really intense interviews and background checks. So for the folks out there, can you kind of explain what that process is like for most refugees and what exactly you went through personally in order to get refugee status?
Yeah, I'd love to, Keegan. So this is something that I hear on and on and on about the vetting process and extreme vetting. And in my case, personally, and this is just a one case out of millions, my extreme vetting took 8 years between the day that I arrived in the United States until today when I have my green card. It took me almost over 8 years of being vetted, of going through multiple levels, from applying through the United Nations previously, then applying through a visa to come to the United States. And once I'm in the United States, I have to submit every single document that I have and be interviewed and renew my papers basically every single year as a student while I was in college, and after when I applied for asylum, again, the vetting process for asylees, especially for those coming from the now 6 countries, previously 7 countries, the banned countries, is rigorous. It's insane. I mean, I can't describe to you how tough it was for me to go through these vetting processes. The interview, even for my asylum interview, usually what they do is they have one interview with an immigration officer, and it's a very lengthy interview asking you about very specific details on why you left your country and why should we protect you and why should we give you asylum to stay in the US. And I had to do 2 interviews, not just one, but 2 interviews. And then, so that just to get to my interview, that was a 2 years wait. And then after that, I waited another year just to apply for my green card. And then it was a few months after that till I received it. So I don't think it can get any more extreme than that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, can we go kind of, so you leave Iraq, but you don't come straight to the U.S. from there. I think there's a kind of a misconception that refugees flee their country and then they just arrive.
Right.
In your case, where did you go for a second country, and then how long after arriving there did it take for you to get permission to come to the U.S. for the first time?
Sure thing. Yeah, so when I left Iraq in late '06, I sought refuge in Damascus, Syria, and at the time, Syria was the only neighboring country that was accepting Iraqi refugees. So I went to Damascus, and I was a refugee there for 2 years between late '06 till late '08. Before coming to the U.S. So while I was in Damascus, I joined a project, a grassroots effort to help Iraqi refugee students obtain scholarships to come and finish their education in the U.S. So I joined the program. It's called the Iraqi Student Project, and in summer of 2008, I applied for a visa. I got my acceptance, and I applied for a visa to come to the U.S. And that's how I arrived here in August 2008.
So one of the questions we've gotten from our readers on Facebook is, why don't the countries that are next door to Iraq, that are more culturally similar, that are geographically closer, why don't they take refugees, and why didn't you try to go to one of those countries instead of coming here?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's a question that I've asked myself multiple times when I was in Syria. At the time, Kuwait, even Iran, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, whatever, everyone closed their borders except Syria. So it's definitely not, again, if I had an opportunity to go to Kuwait or to Jordan or to wherever to escape violence that was going on in Iraq at the time, in Baghdad, I would have done so without even thinking about it. So again, it's not a choice that I made why I went to Syria. Why these countries close their borders, I don't know. I don't think it's okay. The same way I don't think it's okay for the U.S. to close its borders for folks who are seeking refuge. Because again, we all have to remember that people are fleeing their countries not because they want to, but because of the circumstances that are forcing them to flee. If they have job opportunities, if they have the education they need, whatever, and they're good to stay, trust me, they're not going to leave. If they didn't have war and conflict happening constantly and people dying and being displaced on a daily basis, they're not going to want to leave their country, because if they're settled, why would they leave? But folks leave because they're forced to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to note that some of those countries, like Jordan and Turkey, for example, have taken in more refugees than any other countries in the world. There's 1 million plus refugees in both of those countries. Not all of them are going to stay there. They're with the UN waiting to be resettled somewhere else. But those countries have, played their part in this as well. Another question that we've got is, with the current climate in the country and the president's rhetoric around refugees, what kind of racism or hate did you face when you came to America, or did you face any at all?
So interestingly, when I arrived to the U.S. and up until recently, up until the elections, I rarely encountered any kind of discrimination, any kind of racial slurs, whatever, with people, with strangers. I don't think that existed up until recently, or it did exist, but it didn't have, it wasn't amplified as it is nowadays. So I rarely really encountered any kind of a situation where someone did not accept me for my origins, where I come from, or my religious backgrounds, or whatever. In college, I had friends who are Democrats, Republicans, who opened their doors for me and welcomed me to their families, and those people, I wouldn't be here without their support. Nowadays, that's what I'm seeing. Folks simply saying, "Oh, Taif is from Iraq," then simply he's he's a Muslim, even though I'm not, and then because I'm a Muslim, then I'm a threat. And again, I'm just like one person from millions. And nowadays, we're facing also a culture that generalizes the word refugee or immigrants. If you're an immigrant, then you're just from one pool of immigrants, and that's not true. We come from different traditions and countries and backgrounds, and we each, even folks who come from Iraq, each individual has his or her own story. So it's not all just like a one thing.
Do you find that those interactions are different face-to-face versus online? Like you're more likely to get kind of hate when you're on social media versus when you're having a face-to-face conversation with people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the reasons why this rhetoric is so encouraged right now is because there is a lack of knowledge about refugees and about immigrants, and why they're coming to they want to come to the United States. So that kind of lack of information, being misinformed, is obviously on the internet. There you have a very easy platform to go and engage with folks, and you might not even know anything about them, but you feel entitled to share your opinion there, and that's fine. But again, I think we need to be very cautious on the idea of making a judgment about a group of people that we have no idea who they are and where they come from, and why are they choosing to seek refuge in the United States. And folks just go on the internet and claim that these people are dangerous, or these people are, whatever that we've been hearing in the news about immigrants. And I personally also really dislike the word alien. Calling us aliens doesn't make sense to me. And then putting the label legal and illegal aliens it's weird. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion that I wanted to share.
I haven't met you in person, but you look very human over Skype. You don't look like an alien at all.
That's great.
Another question, you talked a little bit before about the really intense, almost 8 years, you said, process that you've been through for security and vetting. Trump says we need to improve this process. What do you think we can do to improve the process of applying for refugee status and resettling in the U.S.? If you were in charge, what changes would you make?
I mean, if I was in charge, I would definitely, it's not going to be, that's a tough question, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I can't say everyone can come in and everyone gets a green card and whatever. Obviously, you have criterias, and people have to make sure that your story, and you're presenting facts, and you're coming here for a reason. You're seeking refuge for this country for a reason. You want safety, you seek shelter, but at the same time you want to give back to this country. So all of that must be taken into consideration. However, I think it's already too extreme. Like there was no reason, for example, that I had to go through two interview processes, or I had to wait for this long just to simply say, hey, I can stay here and there's no threat to me to go back right where I come from. And that's and again that's what was so challenging for me when I was at the interview, is how extreme they got. Is they didn't, I told them about the story of my father, and I told them how we were threatened, but they also told me, well, like they said that it was your father who was kidnapped, it was your father who disappeared, but it wasn't you. So how, like, tell us why your story is true. So again, you have to really, it was super uncomfortable for me, but again, they take it too far sometimes. And so when they say, let's make it more extreme, I don't get it, because I think it's already too extreme. And the immigration system already had its flaws before this current administration that needed to be addressed, needed to be fixed. And now it's just, unfortunately, it's getting worse. So I don't know.
So let's talk a little bit about what Trump's executive orders actually try to do. So both of them are basically the same in regards to refugees. They tried to halt all refugee resettlement to the U.S. for 120 days, and then maybe start it back up after that, depending on how the review goes. And they want to cap the total number of refugees that the U.S. would accept this year at 50,000, which is less than half the 110,000 the Obama administration agreed to take. Both of those have been held up by federal judges, and they're kind of waiting to go through the court system to find out what happens next. Now, a lot of people out there might think that because these bans were blocked, that everything is going fine for refugees. But I know, at least through my reporting, that that's not exactly the case, that these bans have already made things really difficult for people who are in the U.S. and have families who are trying to come here, or for people who are abroad and trying to come. So what is the effect, even with these bans being blocked by judges, on refugee resettlement right now?
Sure. So let me tell you about my personal experience with these bans, with the first ban. So I, when Iraq was part of it, I recently got my travel document, which is, again, another story of how to get that, to go and see my family in Australia, whom I haven't seen in over 12 years. So fortunately, all worked out. I went there, had a great time, saw my family, was great. Came back a few days before inauguration, and then a week after that or so, the first ban was signed. Now, if I didn't come back in time when I did, I mean, I don't know where I would be today. And I'm not 100% sure that I would be speaking with you today if I didn't come back in time. Then the second came, and they took Iraq off the list. And for some reason, people expect me to be okay with this ban just because Iraq is out of it. But I think those folks are missing the point. It's really not about being selective on which countries you are. It's about the why are you banning these countries, and on what basis are you not allowing these people to come here? And it's still wrong. It's still un-American. It's not what it's, I fled Iraq because of religious persecution back in 2006. I came here because of America's religious freedom, because of the liberty for you to be who you are and be accepted for what you believe in and whatever. This is not what I signed up for. And these bans, again, like, even though Iraq is not on the list, I still feel kind of insecure and unsafe, because anything can happen in the next few months or whatever that could even impact folks who have green card like myself, which took me 8 years to get. So it's still very very uncertain, and that is really unfair for people with families, and for the many people who don't even have the safety of a green card.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question from our viewers out there, and that is, eventually, do you plan on going back to Iraq to try to build a better future for your nation and your people, or are you hoping to stay in the U.S. For the foreseeable future?
Look, Iraq was my country of origin. America is my new home. So that's it. Do I want Iraq to become a better, safer place? Yes, 100%. Do I want the people of Iraq to stop dying, to stop being forced to leave their homes and their families? 100%. But where I live right now, I have embraced everything about America, about its culture, its norms, its values, its diversity, and I love it. It made me the man that I am today. And I feel like if I go back to Iraq one day, I'm gonna feel strange in my country of origin, because I've been in this country for so long, and I live and breathe everything about America and what it stands for. So, do I wish to visit Iraq someday? I hope so. But with Iraq, with how things are in Iraq today, I'm afraid my life would be in danger if I go back. So I don't feel safe enough to go back to Iraq, as of now. But maybe someday in the future.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you in America, and I could say you can stay welcome to stay as long as you like. You're doing some great work. I have time for one last question, and that is from me, and that is, what can folks who are out there watching this do to help refugees in their communities or internationally if they want to do something to help, whether that's donating, volunteering? What would you recommend is the best way for folks to go about that?
Yeah, I think folks in the United States should spend a little bit more time to meet these individuals, to learn about them, meet them face to face, like we were discussing, learn about why they want to stay in the U.S., why do they want to become Americans eventually in the future, what are they contributing right now to life in the U.S. And for internationally, I mean, look, there's in Syria just today over 6 million people internally displaced in the country. In Iraq, there's over 3.2 or something million internally displaced folks. So these folks need food, they need water, they need, their basic daily needs. So if you can chip in $1 a day to help to help these people, then do it. If you can raise awareness about the crises that are happening in the world, do it. But in general, just learn more. It doesn't take long to read an article that explains why folks are fleeing Syria. I feel like by now we already know what's going on in Syria and how many people are suffering from that. And just learn that when someone is trying to come to the U.S. or to another country, it's not because they chose that. They were forced to flee their homes, and they simply want a shelter and a better life that they can take on to support themselves and their families.
Absolutely right on time. Thanks again for taking the time to talk to us about refugees. I'm Keegan, US Editor of Vice News. That was Taif Jani with the Young Elected Officials Network in Washington. Thank you all for viewing. That's it.